Very well, thank you so much for joining us yet again. You're watching Smart 24 TV in case you just joined in. And SMB Smart Means Business continues with me, Rita Cavanyoro. And right about now, we're going to speak about what is bothering you. Because on a Monday, we get public concerns, and this is taking us onto the inflation rates that are happening in the country. Away from there, we've got at least, I don't know whether you've received messages yet on your phone warning you about whether that account that you are dealing with is active. It could be mobile money or the money, a SIM account or the bank account. But away from that, joining us now to discuss more so on inflation, let's begin from there, is Jonan Waiswa, who is from Bank of Uganda, heading public education and awareness. Thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay,
I'm glad
then.
to be here.
All right. If you could start explaining to us what the inflation rate that is happening around the country, what do you have to even say about it? Are we in inflation as Bank of Uganda? You're the right people to speak to us around there.
Good question. First of all, we need to understand what is even inflation.
Please.
Before we even go far. Inflation is generally the persistent increase in the general prices of goods and services. So those two words are important. Persistent, so they must be like moving, changing frequently. Then in the general prices of goods and services. So if it is only fuel prices increasing, we can't say disinflation. It must be a basket of goods. So now it comes to your question, do we have inflation today? I would say, yeah, we are starting to experience inflation because now the prices of various goods are going higher. And it's starting to be a worry to most of us. Even me, who is in Bank of Uganda, I buy goods from the same shop with you. It's not that we don't have a shop at Bank of Uganda, neither are we given goods from there to go and consume at home. We compete in the same market. So inflation is not good. No one would like inflation. No one would want to associate with the aspect of inflation. And that's why Bank of Uganda has what we call monetary policy. We conduct monetary policy on our daily basis to ensure that prices remain low so that people can plan their way of life every day. The business people, even the consumers, you and myself. You don't want to go to the shop and today sugar is 1,000, tomorrow is 2,000, the other day is 10,000, like people are now experiencing. So yeah, that's it. So you asked whether as Bank of Uganda we are seeing inflation. I would tell you, yes, it is starting to worry us, but are we acting? Because that's the question you're going to ask. That's a question we shall answer as we go on. But to answer your question, yes, the various commodities whose prices are going higher are a worry and should be a worry for everyone.
Okay, and
Yes.
what are you doing about it on towards as we head to these escalations? Because the public is in decry of the soap price. Now there is sugar, there is cooking oil. Do you have an answer for us?
Yeah, I would do. Every day we are finding an answer at the bank. Every day. Whether there is no inflation, we are always forecasting. We don't sit there and we say, oh, there's inflation, so now we don't do postmortem. So every day we have a team that is always looking around to see, can there be any risk to inflation? Can be anything that can cause inflation? So we are in the search for the answer, and always we are in the search for travel elsewhere. But what are the causes of inflation, first of all? Inflation is caused by a number of factors. It could be triggered by a small bit, then it goes into other products. For example, talk about fuel. When fuel prices go higher, it will easily trickle into other goods and services or commodities. If in my village where I come from, they use a grinding mill to do maize flour and millet flour. So if the diesel prices are higher, then definitely they will buy at a higher price.
The cost
they will
is
increase.
reflected.
Transport will be the same and all that. So there is that aspect of cause of inflation where it is usually imported. There is that can be imported. For example, we don't produce fuel now. We are anticipating to start producing fuel, but don't produce fuel now. So that if fuel prices go higher where it's produced or where it import from, definitely it will be an effect here. So that can be imported inflation. But there could be inflation that is caused from here, where probably if there was drought, largely, you know, we used to have last time
the locusts.
So people's crops were ravaged. You would just know, and our team there would easily focus and say there is going to be inflation because the crops are going to yield, and that means the food prices are going to go higher, and that means and you know also we export, so even Kenya can come here and buy from the east, and then so we fight for the available food, and then the prices go higher. And you know the economic principles: the higher the demand, the higher the price.
And speaking about Kenya, what is going to happen? Because last week Kenyans were coming to the areas
near the east, yes. That's where I come from Busoga and around there. So you can see the
what is the impact of that towards our economy? When we see our neighbors coming to grumble on what we have, and even when it's even less at a point of which is even expensive for those people, what does it entail?
You see, what is even strange is that we get our import through the port of Kenya, Mombasa. So when our people who give us now come to us to get, then that's a worry. But you see, they had a different issue of subsidies. They offer subsidies, then the companies didn't import enough fuel. So now there was an issue of now grappling for the few liters that were remaining in the country, which I think the country is grappling with. In Uganda, we had stabilized. Our fuel was coming in well. It wasn't more of an instituted problem. It was more of a policy issue, which they grappled with. I am sure in a few days they will sort it out as a government. But as of now, especially
in a few days as it's happening, where does it leave Uganda?
Of course, I wouldn't say it leaves us in a worse situation.
In monetary policies.
I wouldn't say it leaves us in a worse situation, because even the Kenyans who are crossing into Uganda to fight for the fuel, it is just within the small bit of the eastern, not into the whole country. Okay. If it was in the whole country, we would be in trouble. If they were importing, actually, we would be in trouble. But it's just at the extreme end of the east, that spillover that people are just coming to get a little bit of fuel there, because in Kenya, things weren't well. But I think by this morning, when you watch news and all that, you could see they are normalizing, being that they have the seaport and all that. It was more of a policy issue of the subsidies, vis-a-vis the companies that were giving subsidies, not importing enough. And
okay, allow me to...
Our biggest problem, before you come in, is now should be not Kenya, maybe it should be the elections of Kenya, because when they go for elections and the Wananchi don't agree with the candidate, they go into the situation of 27 demonstrations. So our trucks can't come in here to bring the fuel. As of now, our trucks are coming in through well. So our biggest worry of inflation is now where we get the fuel from. Saudi Arabia, because now they're also deciding the fuel whether to give some people who have been closed out of Russia. Those are the things that are now should be worrying us, that we are also looking at, whether it will not filter into the economy, into other sectors, and also lead to increase of prices of other sectors.
So are you telling us that we should confirm from you that the major cause of commodity price, skyrocketing and all these rates is due to the fuel?
That's one of the causes. That's one of the causes. But there are other causes.
Please.
You see, when we went into, I can call it hibernation, when we had the COVID lockdown, every economy basically was locked down, including the giants, the big boys. Talk about France, talk about US, talk about basically European Union. So because of the closure of the economy, the demand was down. The aggregate demand, general demand of the economy was down, because people are in their homes. So it's only food that was, but someone who used to move out to go and shop a bicycle, a new phone, it wasn't as much. It was more, even the food here, it was basically given out, although we had food up country. So apart from the supply chain, the global supply chain was hugely affected. So people would not easily move commodities from one place to another, and so that means even the people who are producing had to scale down on production. So that was a shock. So they had to wait, and you know, predicting when the lockdown would be shifted, even last year locally, you saw it was difficult. You'd wait on the president. I think that was the time we would watch TV very much. So he comes and says, okay, but another 360 days.
Okay.
So now the disruption in the global supply chain affected general supply. And you know, it is easy to scale down production, but it's not as easy to increase production immediately. So now companies are just starting to increase production, but also watching. You don't want to produce things and they are there, and I know some things are perishable, they might end up into trouble. Imagine like chocolates. You don't want to overproduce so much and then they end up in the shelves and they're not sold. So the pricing models, the production models, you have to be careful, don't produce so much as they were watching the opening of the economy. So when they open the economy, they have to now restart producing, increasing the scale, employing people that are laid off. The machines that are the...
I'm going to take you back to what you were telling us at the beginning of the conversation, prior to the beginning, when you said Bank of Uganda, you're working on the answer. Every day, each day that comes, you're working on the answer. The public is waiting. At this point, they're on a worry. Like, it happens like it's not coming, the answer is not coming. When do you assure us? Or what should we wait? From what period are we going or to continue like this? How long is it going to take?
You see, Rita, this is the time we need to think about a solution, but tactfully. I grew up in the village where we used to cook from in the pots. Cook beans, put the beans in the pot and you cook, or meat. So imagine a snake is in the pot.
Before you checked?
No, just imagine the snake is in the check. You know it's there in the pot. But you have to cook. So what do you do? If you hit the pot, it will break and you won't eat. But again, if you put your hand there to remove it, it might bite you and you will die. So the situation now is, at the Bank of Uganda, our policies to control inflation are normally checking on the side of money supply. How much money is in the system? So we check on that because usually the economic assumption is that too much money will lead to increase in prices. And you know why? When people have money, they don't bargain. Just say, how much is this one? The phone is 2 million.
They put it in circulation.
Yes. So we check on the supply side of the money. That's most of our that's where we come from to check on inflation. So you want to check now, do you think we have too much money now? Is it the reason why inflation is there, in your own view?
I don't think we have too much money. The fact that the public is crying, they do not have money even to buy soap. Otherwise, if it were there, we wouldn't be crying to go and purchase commodities. That's you could be having
now,
a different...
Technically, that's what I'm saying. Now, if we swing into action immediately, and we want to to control the inflation, which is there, 3.7 now, Ubos gave us the figures. Our target is 5% as inflation. When we exceed 5%, we are really so worried. So we don't
5% of our GDP.
No, 5% of inflation. Like if the prices are increasing faster at 5% rate per annum, we are worried.
Okay then.
We swing into action. But now the inflation is 3.7%. According to the figures. We don't produce the figures. It's the UBOS. So the current figures are 3.7%. So you can see it's still below our target of 5%. But we're not saying we are not bothered, because to move from 3.7% to 5% can even take a few months. So it's not that we're not bothered, but we are saying we need to be so slow to swing into, to bring out our stick to remove inflation. Why? Because our mechanism of controlling inflation are based on controlling the supply of money. And it's based on the fact that people have a lot of money, that's why the prices are higher. The situation today is different. People are just from COVID lockdown. It's not that they have a lot of money. The inflation is more external than internal. So when you go in and you have solutions for internal, as an internal cause, then you'll be causing an issue. You'll be driving people more into poverty. So you can remove inflation and push more people into poverty. Is that what we want? No.
No, we
so
don't.
We are looking at a solution that, as we monitor, because currently we are monitoring. As the prices go higher, we are looking at, some prices are not actually going higher, they are coming down. Data is coming down, has been down. Transport hasn't increased. You remember in COVID, the prices were so high, they came into a bit down. We haven't seen them increasing. So the soap and the
cooking
oil, definitely we are looking at it, but the causes of those prices are more exogenous. They're more of the external bit, more than internal, but we are still monitoring.
What possibilities do you have, or what arrangements are in the monetary policy to make sure, in case of an escalation in inflation, for example, given the fact that, it's just an example, we're at 5%, what could be done from Bank of Uganda?
Yeah, we implement, we use a regime or a framework called inflation targeting. Right? We used to do post-mortem, like I told you. We would sit and see, oh, there's a lot of money in the economy. So then we would move into action. Today, we look at what is happening. That's why I said every day, we are devising solutions. Before even the problem appears, we are nosing into what is happening.
Are you telling me, when you say you are just finding answers, are you telling me it's the first of a kind to happen? This has never happened.
And this is what I'm saying, that it's not that we're even finding, we are always on the lookout. So it's not that it's the first that has happened, we are always on the lookout, but we want to find solutions that won't even yield worse issues than what is happening. Because if we go ahead and say, let's say, we government increases the CBR, we are currently at 6.5%. The moment we increase the CBR, what happens? The lending rates will go higher. So if you went to the bank, if we increase the CBR, then the banks increase their lending rates. If you went to the bank to borrow some money to go and do your business, you'll borrow it at a higher rate. So that means you'll fear to go to the bank. You'll fold your hands. And that means the job would have created, because for you're always here. So you want to open a boutique and employ someone. And that's what we want now. But if you wanted to go to borrow the bank, you wouldn't borrow because the interest is high. So you will even we shall have curtailed the job we would have created for that person. We shall have curtailed the tax you would have paid to government and KCCA. We shall have curtailed the rent income you are going to give the person you're going to rent a new boutique. So we are saying, while we want to find a solution, we are first studying the situation. If it is entirely global, like we have been seeing, we also monitor the exogenous factors. If it's about the war, what is being done in the war? Probably if the war ends today, imagine if we increase the CBR and the war ends tomorrow and the things normalize, but you have increased the interest rates, people are struggling to get credit. That wouldn't be the way to go.
From what you're telling me, the credit borrowing rate, if at all you issue creditors,
yes,
you issuing money to creditors, what would happen in the country like this from what we're seeing right now? And please share with me what is happening now around borrowing situation in these particular banks. What is the situation around there? What's the experience right now? Are you limiting money in circulation?
We are not limiting. Actually, because the economy has just come from COVID, we are encouraging borrowing. That's why you saw from almost our CBR. Our CBR is our policy rate, which indicates the direction we want to take. So if we increase our CBR, we are saying go zero on borrowing. So that means even the commercial banks will increase their lending rate and you will be scared to borrow because we shall have seen that inflation is coming. But now we have reduced our CBR. It's now at 6.5, which was at one time 10% and beyond. So by reducing it to 5%, we are signaling to you people and the people out there who are seeing me that please now go and borrow more money from the banks, go and do business, create jobs while you earn, other people are earning, but also you pay taxes to government and the economy goes on. Because we are cognizant of the fact that we are being locked down. People lost their jobs because companies scaled down. People scaled down on production. Generally, they were not paying taxes, many salaries for people. Some people cut salaries for people. So because of that, now we have reduced the CBR. That means banks have reduced their interest rates, and that means you go and borrow money and revive your businesses.
Okay, then. At least we've gotten the picture.
In fact, on top of just the money which the banks give you at a higher rate, generally, even the government has created a special fund, which you call this Small Business Recovery Fund, to allow small businesses between 5 and 49 employees to go and...
The one from UDB Bank?
No, this is managed by Bank of Uganda. There is also UDB as an arm, but there is also for Bank of Uganda through the financial institutions. So if you have a company which was employing 5 to 49, go for this loan. And I'm telling people outside there, don't just sit there. The money is there. And you know the interest rate? Only 10% per annum. So you borrow 10 million, you take back 1 million after how long? After
a year. Share with us, let us conclude on the borrowing issue, because there has been a complaint from SMEs at the rate which our government domestically borrows. And there tends to be a competition ranged from how SMEs are going to access the funds, that the interest rates are increased because of the borrowing from government. How true is this from Bank of Uganda?
There is what we call crowding out.
Please.
Crowding out is if the government overborrows from the people. Every time the Bank of Uganda issues treasury bills and bonds, it is borrowing from wananchi. Instead of going to China or UK to borrow, they borrow from us. That's what we call the domestic debt. Now, when the government borrows too much from the public, that means the banks, the commercial banks, find it easier. You know, the government is the safest to borrow, to lend to. Because
from
at no
the
time,
bank's side.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Because the bank is part of the public. So when the government borrows from the public, they borrow through the commercial banks. Because people don't give money directly to government. They send to the commercial banks, and the bank remits money to Bank of Uganda to government to spend. But what I'm saying is, when the government overborrows from the public, from the commercial banks, the commercial banks find it easier to get the money which they would have lent you and me. They find it easier to lend to government for two reasons mainly. One, the government never defaults. Never. Because when the president is out of power, if it happens, the next president will have to make sure they pay the loan. Because it's through the central bank. So the central bank will always make sure they get the money to pay, and they wait for the government to collect the taxes to pay that money back. So the government, one, doesn't default. Two, they're running around with uyo, this one has not paid, you go, Rita has gone, the other chukubo. There's no running, you know where the Minister of Finance is, the things are on paper. So it is easier to lend to government, easier and convenient to lend to government than to lend to individuals. That's why most parts concerned that when the government overborrows from the public, then there's little money and cheaper money to lend to the public. Because the government, everyone would want to lend to government because they
And
pay
is
easily.
that why there is that cost of interest that is always felt by these people attached onto them? Does that explain the reason?
The cost of interest is...
Because recently it was at 14%.
It depends on the bank. It depends on the bank. That's why we'll assess many banks. Always make sure you go to many banks.
From 12% to 14%. Let me give that particular range, because the survey we did was ranging, the majority of the banks ranging from a 12%.
You're meaning lending to government?
No, to individuals.
That could have been the prime lending list to those companies. But for normal people, it is even beyond that. It's 19, 20.
Okay.
Percent. Unless if it is those prime lend for companies, because they tag that based on our CBR. But let's assume there is a 19% interest. It depends on the bank. While you might go to bank X and they give you at 15, I might go to bank B and they give me at 22. But also it depends on what is in there. You might find they have charged you on reducing balance, so that every time you pay, they only charge interest on. There are others, they charge you on the entire amount until you finish paying. So it depends. You need to look at what the bank is offering. It's not just normal. It's not static. It's not uniform. Every bank has their aspect, and you need to look at. And for people who are borrowing little money, like 100 million and below, we even simplified. We created one document which is called the key fact document. You look at that document, and it has all that it requires. What is your interest you are supposed to pay? What is your loan amount? What is the risk if you don't pay when you default? One page, so that we'll get away from the aspect of the whole booklet of terms and conditions. Who is your mother's side? When did your dad die? Those things. So
okay, then, as we're going into a break, but before that, could you take us through, as we conclude on the inflation discussion, how mobile money transactions are being affected here on inflation, or which one affects the other?
I would say, you know, the other can affect the other, the other can affect the other. If because mobile money is just a system, just to help transfer money. So if there is a high inflation, it's just for them, they will try. This will only transfer what is there. You get it. But maybe what we can say is we can easily know through our mobile money system payment whether people are transacting or not transacting. That's the only way we can know. By you look at the volume of transactions and the amount of transactions. Probably that's it. But
what is at stake right now, according to the situation? How are the transactions?
I would say people are starting. The business is picking up.
Okay.
People are really starting to trade. After lockdown, you know that after lockdown now people now are trying to put a few things together and you start business. So the values are increasing, and we have hope that in the next, if the war goes away,
Russia, Ukraine.
That's what everyone is worried about. Those importers, exporters, that's what we're worried about. And maybe to give you also, as we conclude this, even us at Bank of Uganda, with the treasury bills and bonds, you know you can invest your money.
Yes, please.
Lend to government, and the government gives you the best pair in terms of interest. That's why you're being scared of increasing interest rates. So we are trying also to explore the mechanism of using your mobile money to invest in treasury bills, instead of walking to Bank of Uganda, or your commercial bank, sorry, to fill in the form, do this, and there is a mechanism that we are planning so that you can use your mobile money to invest in treasury bills as little as it can be, and you wait for your 3 months or
okay then. And after the break, we're going to be discussing how that dormant account of yours comes about, why you need it, or what do you need to do or react towards that. Stick around with us.
Smart 24, driving business.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals, out-of-this-world celebrations.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Gold TV. Love it.
shashurire simu y'ikiruto cyawe mpora mpora. Yitungire simu y'ikiruto cyawe iri zuba ahasendenje okutandikira aha 14 na data y'umwaka guna yabusha. Rero ushashure mpora mpora nushashurira umwaka gumwe nizishangum MTN Service Centers numbaduka ga M-Kopa.
And validated when you invest with Britain's unit trusts. Are you saving up for a car, school fees, a wedding, a house, or more enjoyment